Hello there guys, welcome to this boring video. Well, it's not boring for me, it's super exciting for me, but this is not going to be the most exciting of videos to watch. So I've warned you, you can go now if you want to. But if you've got nothing else better to do with your time, here it is guys. Here is the Moza AB9 force feedback joystick base, force feedback stick, extension shaft, but an extension shaft that also has rudder control and a table mount. What we're going to be doing in this video is unboxing things and hopefully talking and saying interesting stuff, because unboxing is quite frankly the worst type of YouTube video content that exists. I'm making this though because I'm genuinely excited. Let's get a knife. I have an irrational enjoyment and excitement when it comes to force feedback devices, and particularly force feedback joysticks, because there's been a huge lack of force feedback joysticks over the years. My first introduction, actually, well, kind of my first introduction to force feedback, which you know I'm obsessed with force feedback, was the Microsoft Sidewinder force feedback joystick, and playing that with Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's where the obsession mostly began, but also, well, we actually got it here, the Microsoft Sidewinder, the original Microsoft Sidewinder steering wheel. So I kind of feel that this force feedback base, this is like, it's taken 3 million years, but things are progressing in the world of force feedback, and that's all that matters. Let's unbox the base first. Right, so we've got the base out of the box, and there it is. Look at that. Now, it does say on the box that it's aviation grade aluminum. I don't know what the difference between aviation grade aluminium is compared to just your bog standard aluminium. I'd imagine they're fairly similar. Who knows? I mean, someone can tell me if I'm wrong on that. Maybe there's a different electrolysis process going on. I don't know. Who cares? At the end of the day, this is not going in a plane, so it doesn't really matter. But it feels nice and solid. It sounds like a stone when you tap it, though. That's a bit weird. But this is a really nice. Has a really nice heft to it. I think there's always something satisfying about solid, chunky metal objects. Moza have done quite a nice job on the finishing of this. It looks like something a bit from the Halo universe, I'd say. And actually, on that note, I would look out for these devices in films. Thrustmaster joysticks and Logitech joysticks and house unveiled pedals, they've been used in many films. There's a lot of that going on in the movie industry. You'll be watching the film and you're like, hang on a minute, that's not a joystick. It kind of ruins the film, but it's quite funny to see. So, key points with this base, it's 12 Newton meters peak output, which is great. To put that in perspective, the original Microsoft Sidewinder joysticks were like 2.4 Newton meters. My Brunner CSL joystick, my current force feedback joystick, I think that tops out at about 5 Newton meters, but in reality, it's really actually probably closer to 4 or 3, because it starts to overheat and it doesn't like sustained loads. The Brunner's fantastic, really smooth. I've really enjoyed using it over the last few years. But yeah, this has 12 Newton meters peak output, but it has 2 individual motors, each motor supposedly rated for 9 Newton meters. So I'm not sure where they get the 12 Newton meter overall force from, but either way, even if this was 7 Newton meters or 6 Newton meters, that would be more than enough force, even if you use an extension arm, for it to really outcompete a lot of other joysticks on the market, and even outcompete, as this is now, it outcompetes like really high-end a lot of private simulator equipment in terms of overall strength. But of course, the key thing isn't really just the overall strength, it's actually the smoothness and then the sort of dynamic range and how all those forces are delivered. That's the joy of force feedback, guys. So just feeling the bottom here, give the bottom a feel, where the joystick mounts to. Yeah, you can feel it's really quite smooth. This is without the joystick on it. You can feel a little bit of the motor cogging. Obviously this is absurd because you're going to be holding onto a joystick, and when you hold onto a joystick that will smooth things out, especially if you've got an extension on it. But just feeling it here, there's very consistent range to it, even holding it here. It's not perfectly consistent here. You can actually feel the sort of crossover between the two motors, but I mean, it's absurd. Also, you need to power it on really, because when you power it on, that applies a current, which then allows the circuitry to get rid of the cogging that you get on servo motors, because it can phase the electricity to undo where the cogging would be. So, but even with it turned off, it actually feels quite nice and smooth. Other observations with this base, it's heavy. I'd say this is about 5 kilograms or no, probably like 3 or 4 kilograms. Maybe I just haven't had enough tea and I'm weak. You've got a hub on the bottom of it, the power input. You've got a USB port and a power button on the back of it. Really nice and simple. You also have some rails here that I think will allow you to attach it to different things. It's a shame it doesn't have any side rails. We do have a mounting bracket that Moza have given us here. So I think this will give different options, but I would say it looks like really you're going to be mounting it from the bottom basically, and possibly the back side if you're going to put it on T-slot. So it'll be interesting to see what other mounting options Moza offer, or how this can go to T-slot, and if other companies come up with different mounting solutions. Right, well, we also have a VIN, but it's not really a VIN, is it? Because it's a force feedback joystick. I don't know, we call it a FIN, the number, Moza serial number. I'm not telling you that. I don't think it really matters, actually. Maybe it does. Maybe I've just doxed myself. But you've got your own serial number, so that'd be useful if you have problems with it. At least you can find the serial number on the base, or convenient. The top actually has a like a car gear shifter protector on here. It feels like fake leather. Could be real leather, but I think it's fake leather. But it feels great, and that's just to stop debris getting into the force feedback base. Let's take this sticker off here. So worth also saying, this has this sort of adapter on the top that allows you to use custom joysticks with it. Weirdly, it was kind of a Thrustmaster that started this. This is kind of the Thrustmaster socket. Maybe other companies did it as well, but then because Thrustmaster used this with the HOTAS Warthog, which was like one of the first customizable high-end joysticks, everybody in flight sim tends to use this connector now. For example, here is the joystick from the Thrustmaster HOTAS Warthog. Well, it's just the joystick part of it, not the actual throttle, obviously, it's just the joystick. As you can see, it's got the mount there, and you should just be able to stick this on. Now, we do actually have the Moza joystick, but let's just stick this on. It's worth noting, actually, one thing you have to be super careful with this type of adapter is you can accidentally screw it on the wrong way, and if the pins are not lining up with the hole here, you will mess up either the joystick or the mount here, which I've not done, of course. Which I did with the HOTAS Warthog, and it requires you to then take stuff apart and rewire it or replace the socket. So it's not a big thing to fix if you are an idiot, but it's worth, if you got excited and you took this out of the box, you're like, woohoo! It's worth noting that it's possible to mess up the port if you don't line it up. Not quite sure, probably less hard to mess this up compared to the Warthog base, because the logo's on the back here, and I'd imagine then it should just line up. Looks like it does. Yeah, it just lines up. So, but I'm not going to put this one on because we actually have the Moza one. But there you go. You can use this with. You'll be able to use this with different joysticks, which is absolutely fantastic. And a lot of people like wheel rims. They like to swap things over. Sad that they don't have a quick release type solution though. Flight sims are a little bit behind driving sims in many ways. But that is most of the rundown for the base there. I mean, obviously we need to actually plug it in and use it, so we can actually review it properly. But this is an unboxing and complete waste of time video. If you're still here, congratulations. I mean, really, what are you doing with your life? I'm not entirely sure. Where have I put my stabby implement? Here it is, right. Here we have then the Moza MH16 FLIGHT STICK, which you might notice is oddly similar, very similar to our existing joystick. But that's nice, because I've got used to how that feels and I'm quite happy with how it feels. So we've got some nice, let's move this to the side here a little bit. We've got some nice instructions, which no one will ever read. What's the fun in that? You want to discover stuff for yourself, break it, and then spend hours fixing it. That's the fun. So again, nicely packaged. It's unlikely that you'd, even if this fell off a boat or an aircraft or was stamped on by a herd of out of control chimpanzees being chased by out of control elephants, I'm pretty sure it'd still stay intact. So nice packaging there. And let's take a close up look at this. So it's we're gonna have to rip the bag here. So what's nice with this, spot the difference. You know, I mean, they're both modelled on an actual real world stick, so you know, this is what it is. But what you do notice straight away, actually, the Moza one is a lot lighter than the Thrustmaster one, but also you have this additional side element here that you can remove this side component of the joystick if you just want these. But so out of the box you get an extra, you've got this three-way, I don't know what you describe that as, but like a three-way button thing, and then you've also got another hat, which I think is an 8-way hat, in addition to the other buttons. You've got a nice trigger that then has a detent. So that's 2 buttons, like an initial trigger and then a resistance to push down. It feels quite nice. It's not as, it's a little bit clicky, not as smooth and as chunky as I'd like, but it does have a nice resistance to there, and I think that'll function absolutely fantastic. You've got a button at the bottom. It's quite nice with you're just using your little finger on it. I'm not sure if that's clear on the camera, probably isn't. And then you've got this button here, which is, you can bind them to whatever you want. But yeah, I think the buttons feel nice. They've got a decisive click to them. The feel of the joystick's really nice, actually. The general ergonomics of it are fantastic. Let's just compare this to the feel of this one. So say, the Moza one's a lot lighter. Okay, so I'd definitely say the Thrustmaster one, this definitely feels a lot more solid. This feels more like it came from an actual aircraft. It doesn't have that initial detent resistance, but the quality of this Thrustmaster one feels a lot better, I think, than the Moza one. However, this does have quite a nice decisive click to it, so especially for the 8-way hat buttons. So it might be easier to actually feel if you've pushed the button, like the actual click from the buttons. I think functionally they both seem the same, but this just doesn't feel as solid or as realistic as the Thrustmaster joystick in general feel. But again, the main thing is you can get these and you can stick them. You can stick them on here, and you can get custom ones. You can get different ones. So you don't have to buy this. In fact, the base comes separate by default, and then you can just choose what joystick that you want to get. Is that the right word? I mean, technically the whole thing's a joystick. The what do you call it? Flight stick. You can then choose. You can choose what flight stick you want. But I think most people would actually be happy with this still. Oh, we've got 2 sliders on the bottom here as well. I'm not sure what these do. Oh, there we go. So we can actually adjust. This is more adjustable than the Thrustmaster one. We can move these paddles quickly and easily. That's nice. As the bottom of that falls off. Okay. So we've got a little bit of adjustment there. That's cool. But I think, you know, ergonomically, I really like the feel of this joystick in general. It's a nice shape to hold on to. Again, another big advantage of having the ability to use different joysticks is that you can, of course, if you're left-handed, you'll be able to get left-handed joysticks, which is a big thing. I'm not sure if you get 2 force feedback joystick for playing Elite Dangerous and those types of games, but that'll be if you're going all in. So let's attach the joystick here and make sure it's lined up correctly. Having the cable, I think, is a great idea so that you aren't going to accidentally squash it onto it and break it. They've really idiot-proofed this. They know there's people like me out there. So there you go, tighten that down hard, and actually you will want to tighten that really hard. Not too hard so that you're cross-threading it, mind you, but reasonably hard so that it's locked in. There is also a pin on there so you could further lock it in, so you don't have to over-tighten it, but let's just tighten these down as well. Fantastic, so yeah, there you go, with the joystick on it. That feels super smooth, and again, that is not really representative of what it'll feel like when it's plugged in because the motors aren't actually charged up, but really good range of motion as well, actually. Do we have like a square? There's like a square pattern to it, but generally when you're flying, you're only going to go like this amount. You're not going to use the full range of the joystick. You're normally stopping before because you have like a software bump stop before you actually get to the edge. So that's fantastic. I mean, just awesome. Awesome quality, well excited for the force feedback, guys. Like a little child at Christmas. Let's take this off because we're not done yet for this incredible unboxing bonanza. Statistically, I wonder how many of our viewers have died of age. There must be at least 1 or 2. Imagine if this was the last thing that you saw just before you kicked, just before you left your mortal coil. Oh dear. I'm sorry. Apologies for those of you that have died whilst watching this video. I can't think of a worse way to go, personally. Right, here we have the Moza Z-axis module. Now this is awesome because not only is it an extension for your shaft to make your shaft longer, who doesn't like a longer shaft, it is also a rudder, gives you rudder control. So if you don't have pedals, rudder pedals, so maybe you're using this on a sim rig like me, you can use this as a hand rudder or use it for other options. If you do use a sim rig, you should check out my video on how to use your throttle and clutch as a rudder, because that actually works really, really well, and I highly recommend doing that. It's a good fun way of getting use out of your throttle and clutch and your sim racing pedals whilst flight simming. Of course though, you won't have toe brakes, but you can make up for that by having a button or some other way of doing toe brakes. But yeah, if you don't have any pedals or anything and you're just putting this on the desk and you still want to have rudder control, fantastic. So let's just take this out here and stick it on, attach it. So this has a Hall effect sensor in it, so it shouldn't wear out over time. Hall effect sensor basically, rather than a potentiometer, it's just that you've got like a chip in there and it's measuring a magnet that's moving, so there's no contact, it will always be consistent, and it can also be reconfigured in the software easily if there's anything that occurs. So great that they've gone with that. Right, there she is, fully attached. fully erected. Yeah, and again, you've got much more leverage there. So this is going to be absolutely fantastic for being super precise with helicopters, because you're going to be doing like tiny little motions when flying a helicopter. This is why actually helicopters with a lot of joysticks, when you're playing with flight sims, you'll be like, oh my God, this is so hard to fly. And they don't make much sense, because you really need that precise input. Or, well, I mean, you can learn how to fly with a gamepad or a smaller joystick, but trust me, it's so much harder than when you've got something like this. So here's my old and somewhat dilapidated X55. It's got dust all over it. So this is what I was using before. And yeah, you can't. I took the spring off it. This is for helicopter flying. You can be precise with it because it's not got any like resistance. But you're going to move it. It's going to pick up quite a lot of input. And even if you put smoothing on it and everything, it's just not going to offer the same degree of precision that you get from having the leverage to move the joystick like fractions, like less than a millimeter, really. So you really benefit from having that extension. And then obviously for helicopters and stuff, having the force feedback as well. Even if you just have a centering force feedback that's consistent, that's actually quite a big help. Or just not a centering force feedback, but like a consistent force feedback feel. That really helps for precision. And then ideally, you play a simulator that has proper helicopter force feedback, so you actually feel the forces on it to then work with the aircraft, as opposed to having to guess what the aircraft wants to do. But this works fine. This works better than a bloody gamepad, that's for sure. We've played DCS loads with this, the Huey in DCS. Oh my God, still probably one of the best helicopters I've flown in a sim. But I mean, look at that. Mind you, I think this was £50 in 2011 or something. And this is getting up to £700. So who's the idiot? But yeah, absolutely fantastic. And let's do a bit of the rotation on this as well. Yeah, so it feels lighter, obviously, when you're doing the rotation from the joystick, because the joystick's got width to it, so that's acting as leverage on this rotation. So it's not as stiff as doing it down here, obviously, but really, really nice and smooth. Very springy feeling, and then it has a definite stop in the center. So you're not going to have like any ambiguity as to where the center of that Z axis or the yaw is going to be. I would like it to be a little bit stiffer, I think, actually, to this. But that's my sort of subjective thing. I'd like it to be a little bit stiffer. Who doesn't like it a little bit stiffer? But it's not bad. I think it's not a problem, is what I'm saying. But I would like it a little bit stiffer, because I feel intuitively, if this is 9 Newton meters or 12 Newton meters of force, this might be a little bit light relative to the other forces, but it's probably fine. It's centering it nice and solid. You're not going to accidentally add the yaw to it, I don't think. So it's strong enough that it's not going to be a problem and get in the way. I think I just like that a little bit stiffer, but super smooth. 20 degrees is more than enough for you to have very precise control of that yaw, and the Hall effect sensor will mean that it always stays spot on. And I think it's quite high resolution, the Hall effect sensor on that. Don't think it'll say, but I mean, you know, these things are pretty standard now. It says high precision. And of course, if you don't like it and you still want to use this as an extension, you can lock it down. So that's the base and the joystick. Last thing to look at, if you're still here, guys. Some people like this type of content. I'm making it for those of you that, you know, you're probably just listening in the background. You're probably hoping that the roof collapses on me and you're like, oh, it was worth watching. We saw his ceiling collapse on his force feedback joystick. He went from excitement for force feedback to despair. It would actually be pretty funny though, wouldn't it? Right, the table clamp. Who doesn't like a clamp? So, I'm really interested to see how this will mount to our sim rig. At the moment, with the Brunner, we've had to create like a weird arrangement to mount it. I've used some pedal tray mounts and then put them sideways to mount the Brunner, but this is quite a chonker, so it's going to be interesting to see how this actually attaches. But worst case, you will have this, we've got this clamp option here, so good for those of you that are playing on a desk, and I imagine actually a lot of flight simmers, you probably are just going to play on a desk. Yeah, this has lots of holes in it, and as a result, due to the joy of T-slot, that should mean that even if we don't use these actual clamps here, which we can remove these clamp parts of this, so this should give us the option to mount this to the T-slot quite nicely. Actually, I highly recommend not picking up these force feedback devices from the shaft. I've done that mistake with the Brunner. Don't do that. I caught myself just before I lifted it there, because you're like, oh, there's a handle, I'll lift it. That's a good way to break things. So basically, that's too heavy to lift with one hand because I'm too weak. This will mount on here. So we should be able to attach this to the T-slot and then put the base on there. So actually that's really good. And we can take these off and then dispatch of them. What else is in the box here? Something weighty. Oh, it's just these screws. So we've got the Allen keys again. Everything that you get from Moza comes with all the Allen keys and bolts and everything, which is to be expected. But weirdly, sometimes when you buy like high-end sim equipment, sometimes you don't get the screws and bolts because they just assume, they're like, oh, you've bought this, you're obviously an idiot that has all the screws and bolts. So fair play to Moza. I mean, Moza obviously are selling this stuff to more of a mass market, which is, again, that's why I'm so hyped about this. Is I'm mental about force feedback, and it's been so depressing that over the last 20 years, over my entire life, it's been terrible. When I was a teenager, it's like, oh, force feedback joysticks, force feedback wheels, amazing. And then it's like, oh yeah, that was it actually. All the good stuff happened in the 90s and 2000s. It's been a managed decline since then. So it's nice, hopefully, that we got more force feedback joysticks, not just this Moza one, but there's a couple of companies working on force feedback solutions. But nice that Moza, I think they do good quality. Like the price to quality for Moza is really, really good. It's why I've kept it on my sim rig recently, the Moza R12. We use the KS steering wheels. We've got the round wheel and the GT3 wheel. I really like, personally, stuff that's good quality and cheap. I think because not everyone is rich. Not everyone can just buy whatever willy-nilly. I think it just excludes people when stuff is expensive like that. So I really like that Moza are doing good quality stuff at a fairly decent price. I'd say a very competitive price actually, but still quite expensive though, isn't it, for your normal person? I am losing touch a little bit with reality. We do need more £50, £100 devices, let's be honest. Hopefully Moza can, after doing this, they'll do some cheaper force feedback stuff. Maybe Microsoft will, maybe Logitech will. Come on guys, letting everyone down here. But yeah, we just put this on here just to stick it on the desk to see how this will potentially mount. So I guess you'd have to put the bolts in first, but I guess you could just... I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to work. You've got these sliders here, so I guess you could put it down the side like this. Or, yeah, we should be able to put it on there. Or you could put it onto the mount here, depending on what you're doing. But if we move this down here, let's see, how low can we go? Oh yeah, so actually, yeah, if you've got that on a desk, it's not completely ridiculous. But ideally, I think this is sort of equipment where you're getting to the point where you probably want some kind of rig. or even a wheel stand or flight stand. We didn't really call it a wheel stand if you're putting a joystick on it, a joystick stand. So that might be an option. And you've got loads of companies that do wheel stands. That's probably a good option if you're going this far. If you're going to spend like £700 on a forcing back joystick, you probably want some kind of stand to put pedals and wheels and joysticks on. But that I think is the unboxing video. If you got to the end of this, type what should we type in the chat? Type I'm sad that the roof collapsed on Game of Muscle. It didn't, but the people read that comment and they'll be like, oh, can't wait to see that happen. I am well excited, guys, to put this on the rig and actually play with it because Flight Sim 2024 is coming out tomorrow. Amazing. But until the next one, guys, thanks for watching this. Happy tea drinking. Take care and goodbye.